please rise. The pledge and remain standing for prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the blessing of this evening. I just thank you for everybody that's here and arriving safely. We just pray for your hedge of protection upon anybody who's traveling tonight and on these roads this week. And we thank you that we thank you for this roof over our heads and that we're warm. Sometimes we lose sight of little things that we have to be thankful for. So we just thank you for that. We pray for your wisdom, pray for your guidance in this meeting tonight. Like always, that you tell us again and again through your word that you will give wisdom to those who ask. And so we pray for that. We ask for that tonight. We ask for your presence in this meeting. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Amen. Jane, if you would.
Brandon Elmore.
Present.
Bob Leahy.
Here.
Nathan Conklin.
Present.
Tim Heiss.
Yes, here.
Peter Frias.
Here.
All right. Trish, you had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Would entertain any comments or laughter? Yes, Bob?
I was just thinking about interrupting. So,
Okay, so go for it.
and forgive me if I've overlooked this in the past, but Motorola annual maintenance fee for a little over $7,000. I'm assuming that's for radios.
That is not the radios. That is the Spillman access fee that the police department has to pay every year to have access to basically the database that they manage every one of their calls. They do their background checks, they do, it's basically how the software and the system that they use every day of the week. Correct.
So obviously we've done it before.
We pay that every January.
For some reason, yeah.
We pay that every
year,
January. The other thing, it used to be paid to a company named Spillman. Motorola has in the last 12 months purchased Spillman, so now it's a Motorola invoice. So it looks like radio equipment, but it's just the service contract and the access to the information that we have to pay every year.
Very good.
I wonder, go ahead.
I apologize for not making the connection.
Oh, you're fine.
No problem.
You're fine. Anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I will move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a first, we have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda approved as presented. Department reports, we have no presenters on the agenda. So department reports, number of things I'll buzz through real quickly. The tree planting that we talked about at the park, luckily we had a community Christmas meeting, a follow-up meeting shortly thereafter, and gained board's approval to run through them. They would operate as a pass-through for donations for tree planting. And so Steve has shared me Dave Wasson's cell phone number. Obviously, I know how to get old Wasson, but he showed me his cell phone number. So I'm going to try to meet with Dave Wasson, and it probably would be nice to meet with Banda as well. You know, the representatives from the landscape community for Union City, and see what we can do in terms of what they could do for us in terms of planting trees, and then we will get that information out to the community. Because I've already gotten 3 trees donated once we have it set up. So yeah, we'll be off and running. So so that's good news to help with the park, and without a tax dollar being utilized. That's awesome. Also, this is basically more or less for good bar trivia down the road. My cousin who did the flag that was adopted by both sides, and I promise you we will have an initial flag hoisting and ceremony this spring. He actually is, for what it's worth, nothing's official yet, but he's reached out to Guinness Book of World Records regarding the potential of the same flag used by the most entities, most cities. And thought being that we've got the exact same flag on both sides of the line, that he's wondering if that's even occurs anywhere else. And if not, why not apply for a guest book award? That's why I started bar trivia. This isn't. I do not want people to think as much as we need jobs and housing and all that stuff, that this is what we sit around and focus on. He raised this to me. He lives down in Miami, and he's doing this pursuit. So he said they have got back with him, and they should have an answer for him sometime in March. So just a heads up. So
It's in St. Paul.
I'm sure you noticed the demo of a property on State Line, the nuisance property we've had. So that's very, very good. And kudos to you guys for moving forward with that. Vision Corner, of course, you have to check Steve's post, and there'll be also a Vision Corner has not only a website, but also a Facebook page. You can check it tomorrow for another update, but you probably saw equipment around there, and they're doing work inside the floor, restoring the floor in there. But just a quick update on that with regard to grant pursuits. The community facilities and the RBDG grants totaling to $348,000 are being submitted. Dave said one's due this week and the other's due next week. So by the time we meet in council next, they'll have already been submitted. And that's to finish out the first floor. That would give us our grant dollars we need to finish out the first floor. The READY grant, I'm sorry, lost train of thought. READY, as you know, the 8 counties that comprise READY, the READY program in the state of Indiana awarded each district so much money, and our district, comprising of 8 counties, which is Randolph, Wayne, Delaware, you name it, was awarded $15 million, and our project, Vision Corner, was ranked number 1 of all those projects in our 8-county conglomerate. So Aaron and I have worked hard to keep the communications lines open, obviously with CN Bells, to ensure that anything you need, anything that we need to provide, we'll be ready to ensure that we get our full amount that we've asked for.
How much was that, can you recall?
We applied for 200 from the city, and the school applied for 200. So I don't know how that's going to shake out, and how they bounce the dollars, but yeah, we're very excited and very hopeful. But along with the grant, he's got a lot of things he's working right now, and you'll see here later in submission basically submitted for your perusal, and a potential approval would be the South Main Water Loop. So he's working on that, and he's also working on the Community Crossings grant for the streets. That number's 10 streets that it would impact this year if approved, which touches parts of Howard and High Street, Division, all kinds of different sections of streets, because we have to have all these streets ranked by need, if you will. So that's part of the process.
Question on that,
Yes.
would it be streets that the gas company's already ripped up?
Oh,
I don't want us to potentially get a grant and then all of a sudden,
yeah. Oh, yeah, it gets ripped up after that, you mean? No, yeah, this would be after that, because by the time we would find out approval, and then
They'll be done.
yeah, they'll be
Okay.
done.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing burns me more than paving the street and then seeing it. So yeah, that submission is this Friday, when he submits that grant. So, a lot of stuff in process. Department heads, so Jan, do you have anything?
No.
Council members, Tito, let's start with you.
Yes, I just had one question. In looking through the financials, I noticed that there were 5 different charges for a Kubota excavator. $6,264.55 5 times. So I'm wondering, is it 5 or is it 1 paid out of different? Because there was that much paid out of the water and truck replacement appropriation, that much from the sewage miscellaneous expense, that much from the cemetery non-reverting, park non-reverting,
And
and...
that adds up to the price of the excavator.
Oh, okay, so it's 1. It's 1.
One excavator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not 5 excavators.
multi-purpose use.
Yeah, we split that among 5.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good clarification.
Good, thank you. That's all I have.
No problem. Tim?
I don't have anything.
All right, Nate?
There's a lot of exciting things happening, stay tuned. 2022 is gonna be fun, that's for sure, especially looking at the city. Other than that, please don't ever hesitate to call, email, text, call the city building, ask for my cell phone number. Jan or any of the ladies will happily provide it. I'll answer questions. I know there were some people complaining that some council members aren't available, well, I'm happily available and we'll find time to meet with you, whether in person or on the phone, so. That's all I've got.
Yeah, and we're also accessible all the time through our website. I actually received a notification over the weekend, there was a street light out. So yeah, we're always accessible, and I responded to them over the weekend and copied Steve. Steve, you probably saw that communication. So.
I have a page on Facebook, Tina Farias, Councilman.
Yeah, so we're definitely always accessible. Bob?
The Area Planning Commission met last week and mainly consisted of election officers, attorney retainers, and some Winchester business. Then we got down to the electronics, excuse me, the electronic sign. Much discussion on that, and it's going to continue into the next meeting next month. So
Okay.
as soon as we get something finalized, we do have a handy little worksheet for all the signs.
Okay.
But somewhat,
They're saying Union City's electronic sign?
not all of them.
All electronic signs are an issue?
Well, right now they are.
Yeah, in the county, not just in the entire county.
Yeah. Schools, everything.
Oh,
Nathan, your response was interesting, Nathan. That's the same thing I did. I put my hand on my forehead.
And someone on our side would be Mr. Moulton, who is the superintendent of Monroe Central Schools, is on the Plan Commission board, so he's somewhat, alarmed by the situation too. Being signs out in front of the school, chili supper tonight, this and that.
Exactly.
So it's going to continue, I would say even possibly beyond next meeting too, so.
Well, yes, as I was hitching my horse to the buggy the other day, I was
Sorry. Sorry. My apologies.
because
Did I
that's
miss something? Is it April 1st?
because it's not really that fun.
No, it's not really that
I
funny,
can't
but
believe that. Got all the way
can I
past
see that list?
before it was ever
List.
discussed.
I thought you said a list of the signs.
No,
Oh, okay,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
got the worksheet.
this
on
is
the approach on it.
size, regulations and all that. But once, it's really outdated already since the electronic signs will probably be reworked in here. So as soon as we get something finalized, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy that needs one.
I guess I cringe because I'd hate to see us go backwards as a county.
Right.
It's
Right.
2022, digital age, we are smack
Right.
dab in it, whether people like to, accept it or not. Yeah, there's gotta be a happy medium. I don't expect a jumbotron out in front of someone's front yard, that lights up half the block. But at the same time, I think they serve a good purpose, especially for a lot of our businesses. And
And
yeah,
I think everybody on the board is
in agreement with
in
that.
agreement with that.
That's good.
So
So hopefully cooler heads
from what
prevail.
I gathered, yeah. So hopefully we'll come up with something good.
Okay.
Has it been discussed to potentially let the local municipalities make the decision?
Nope.
That would be a fantastic
I
suggestion.
know. I will write that down. Well, I was just curious, I brought up the point of, does the state regulate anything like that? They got
That's a
them all
good
along the
question.
state highways and stuff.
Yeah, that's a great
Nobody could answer that question for me, so.
That's a great question, and I would venture to say if there is something, it's got a fair amount of leniency to it, because I do a lot of traveling, and man, there's a lot of digital signage out there, and of all shapes and sizes.
Bob, I would, and I'm just saying this because I was at the zoning meeting the night before. The sign manufacturers that was represented there, because I think there was a total of 7 sign variance requests at that zoning meeting. I would have to believe that the state does allow them, as well as, just because I spent a lot of time in the car this weekend, Delaware County, Jay County, Wayne County, all allows them because
Right.
they're all over the area. And actually, when I was at the zoning meeting, I was shocked that we don't allow them, because that came up during the zoning meeting, and I notified Chad of that
Yeah.
we may have a problem. So I hope we can navigate through this and allow for that.
Now, that was
That media
basically
to be
my question.
used.
Well, if the state doesn't really regulate it that much, then why is us as a county really that worried about it?
Agreed.
Anyway,
Thank
I'll
you
keep
for
everybody
reporting back.
Well, yeah, thank you for the heads up, and appreciate your input, big time.
That's all I have.
All right, Brandon?
Nothing to report today.
No problem. All right, Steve?
The only thing I have is I want to continue the conversation about the UTV. This conversation's evolved a little bit from the last meeting. I now have 2 quotes to purchase one of these units. I think I still need to do, I guess I'm just going to throw it out and ask you guys what you think. I have a price on a Kubota, I have a price on a Polaris. The Polaris is purchased here locally. The Polaris has a greater clearance rating than what the Kubota does. The Kubota has a whole lot more accessories that can be utilized on this device. In the last 2 weeks, I've had additional conversations with our utilities, our water department, our street department, our park, and our wastewater. I believe we are going to purchase this piece of equipment for the most part jointly. I believe that it will be used on some sort of a regular basis in maintenance and cleaning and taking care of our downtown corridor. That is on the hit list for the mayor. As far as sweeping sidewalks, cleaning, doing those kind of daily tasks, I believe a vehicle like this can be well suited for that as well. I can't compare apples to apples price wise, because the Kubota price has a salt box, a 60-inch or a 72-inch V plow to do sidewalks. It has a 60-inch rotary broom to clean the sidewalks in the summer. So we kind of spec'd them out a little bit differently. I can do the same thing with Polaris by buying those attachments, but those attachments and accessories are aftermarket and they're not manufactured by Polaris. So I think overall for search capabilities, I think the Polaris makes more sense because off-road work, I would have larger tires and a greater clearance. So what I would propose, if you guys will grant me the permission, is continue to work with Brad, decide exactly which unit we want, weigh out the pros and cons, but allow us to get something ordered, and then basically look at buying the attachments as needed and as by what actually fits best with our operation. And effectively, if I do it the way we just did the excavator, it all falls within each department's budget to where it could just be managed as a budget item and nothing would have to be financed or anything like that.
Yeah.
How much was the Kubota and Polaris?
The Kubota, well, the Polaris as spec'd without the medical bed on the back, because I'm going to have that fabricated here locally, was $21,392.06. And that's after the government discount.
Okay.
And that would be for the Ranger XP 1000. The Kubota,
What's the base model of the Kubota?
the base model of the Kubota is $20,143.78, and that does not include the government incentives.
And then what's the Kubota with all the attachments?
Well, I didn't have a conversation, Brad did.
Okay.
So it includes a 10 cubic foot salt and sand box spreader. It includes the 60-inch rotary broom, the 72-inch V snowplow, and then all of the nuts and bolts, all the hydraulic oil lines and all that stuff to go along with that. The whole entire thing delivered was $36,526. But again, what we're planning on doing is dividing that by 6 departments and making that happen. So, and again, the last meeting we were talking just setting in the bay, all cleaned and polished, and the reality is I think it makes more sense to use it every day, put the ordinance officer and their part-time staff in it, cleaning the downtown, doing those kind of tasks on a regular basis, and using it as emergency services when we need it for special events and searches and things that we have to do off-road.
It would be able to, I can't picture what Kubota it is. Is it the one that's kind of like a Ranger, where it doesn't have as much clearance?
Right, it sets lower to the ground.
Okay.
I've got a picture of it right here, Nate. There's one already that cruises around town. I believe Doolin's have it.
Yes, that's what I thought.
It's got it's got the automatic enclosed cab, everything's sealed. It's actually got a little bit more creature comforts than the Polaris. It's got air, it's got heat, it's got automatic wipers, it's got all kinds of stuff in it. But again, I'm not looking at it for that. I'm looking at it for how do we get the most out of the piece of resource that we can. It would be housed at the fire department. Ordinance is housed out of the fire department and the police department, so that makes sense. They can take off every day with it from there. We'll probably just suspend the med bed and the salt box and anything else that we buy, so it literally is just a drop in and bolt down and we're good to go type of a process. But basically what I would like to get today is just permission to move forward with it, and again, it's going to fit into everybody's budget. So
Is the Kubota local too? Is that?
the Kubota, I believe, would come out of Bern. I believe that's the dealer that we use. Yeah, Bern, Indiana.
And we're getting one.
Right now, we're only getting one. That was your guys' wishes from the last meeting, so.
Well, I think one thing, if we do focus on one vehicle, then we can assess needs
Right.
at that point too.
And I really like, I'm torn, because I really like the idea of being able to simply attach different devices and get the most bang out of the buck, but I really need a little bit more clearance. Just if I'm way off-road or in the woods or something, I need the most clearance I can get. So as far as payload, they're both about the same. As far as overall capabilities, I think they ultimately all do the same. We just have to settle into, are we going to buy the ground clearance and then buy aftermarket accessories, or are we going to buy something that all the accessories and the unit itself all match and are designed to pair together? So
What's the price difference?
I'm going to say pretty close to being about the same. I think the Kubota's a little bit more, but Brad didn't price it the same as the Polaris, so there's more features and more options on the Kubota.
When I've looked at some of the Polarises and some of the accessories, as long as you buy the quality accessories, there's some cheap stuff out there, but as long as you buy the quality accessories, they're good and they're good enough.
And I tried to get that price. I went today because I didn't get this price until this morning.
Yeah.
I went today. I need a price for a salt box, 10 cubic foot salt box spreader for the back of the Polaris. I can't get that through Brett's. I have to get that through Flory's, and it'll be Boss, and it'll be good stuff, but you know, they sent me to Flory's to get that. Well, I don't have those prices yet. So I think the same options are ultimately available. It's just a matter of
Sourcing it.
The one
Sourcing
accessory I can see being pretty useful, both or really year round, is the brush. Because a lot of places they use those for snow, and
Yeah, this could have been brushed off.
and actually this snow
Yep.
on our sidewalks with the bricks and the mixture of things and everything, brushes are actually quite ideal. A lot of
Yeah.
college campuses they
Ball
use.
State does the same
Ball
thing.
State's real heavy on brooms because they don't tear things up with them.
Yeah.
And so we might not even really necessarily need a plow on it
Right.
if
Yeah,
with a broom.
again, this conversation's a little bit liquid. It's
Yeah.
evolving, but we're going to have, even if I buy Kubota, we got to get something ordered because there's no
Yeah.
inventory
Yeah, we gotta get
available.
moving on
So Again, I believe we're going to split it between all the operations within the city. I believe we're going to probably look at, it makes the most sense, using it on a regular basis. And it, again, it'd be housed at the fire department for emergencies, so.
We just say go ahead, or
So I'm gonna say we consensus, I'm gonna say I'm
We have a
a,
consensus.
I'm on go ahead and move to.
Yeah.
to-
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I like the
Keep working on
multi-purpose
this.
approach.
Yeah,
Sounds like a good plan.
As for which one, that's whatever you and the department heads decide, whether it's Polaris or Kubota.
To be honest, if I had the same clearance, I would probably buy Kubota because everything was interchangeable and manufactured by the same company. But I think clearance for the fire department emergency operation is going to be very important for us, which that means we're buying aftermarket parts.
and I like the local aspect for one, supporting the local dealer, but also the local support in terms of service and warranty repair or repairs in general, that it's right here as opposed to, because every time we have a piece of equipment, it has to go someplace. And, you know, it's our street sweeper is about done and ready to come back, and it traveled a pretty good distance. Now, there's no way to do that locally, obviously, but anything we can do locally is good.
Yeah.
Good to try to keep
Big
that.
time. Agreed. All right, anything else, Steve?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
so.
Can I ask what was the result? Was there a motion there?
We had a consensus. Do you want a formal vote?
What's the consensus?
That positive for pursuing the, but framed up exactly how is what you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, what is Steve allowed to do?
He's allowed to decide.
So you didn't specify which option or
You're still
anything?
gonna come up with the assessment of what your preference is between you and Brad and so forth, and then bring it to us.
What I would rather do, if you want to know the truth, I think it's best to buy from Brett's. I think I would like to have approval to
Order
the 21,392.06 and get that on the way. And then Brad and I may do additional research for what is the best avenue for the power broom and some additional components that we may be purchasing and adding to this piece of equipment as time goes by. The important thing is that I think we need to get it ordered, so, because I'm going to have a 6 to 8 month lag time till we're taking delivery of it.
So if we gave the consensus to spend up to $22,000 on the Polaris UTV, that gives you the leeway? Or do you want us to a higher certain dollar amount?
Nope, I think that'll get us the leeway to get started. We can, like I said, I got agreement from everybody to split it up amongst everybody's budgets, and then we can.
We need a formal
Is
motion.
that in form of a motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
I move that we do, well, I know Jan's gonna want it verbatim, so.
Yes.
I move that as council, we approve up to $22,000 on the Polaris Ranger XP 1000.
We have a first, we have a second.
I'll say.
We have a first and second. Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brendan Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Lehead.
Yes.
Nathan Copeland.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Peter Frias.
Yes.
I do have a question. So then we'll have basically the city will own the base unit. Well, then will every department then be responsible for the attachment that they would use?
Well, effectively, if we use it the way I'm envisioning it, the unit being used is going to be used by emergency services every day. Like with our ICE student, we'll put him in it cleaning the downtown, we'll put him in it, weeding the landscape and doing all of those tasks on a daily basis when we have him at work for 3 or 4 hours every day. So that will kind of be their go-to unit to get all those tasks done
And then at night it would be housed
at the firehouse, and
firehouse
it
if there's
would
an
always
issue.
be ready to be responding to an emergency. But in theory, it's going to be used primarily by Ordinance and the fire department.
Okay,
But
but
it
your
would,
question is, if it's split between all the departments, are they assessed like a street
Yeah.
sweeper would be street department?
Yeah, that's.
Brad is 100% on board with splitting all the attachments and all that. The question is just getting it ordered. And then, you know, like, as I prepare to do this, I'm going to do the research on the front side about a power broom. Does the Polaris accommodate a power broom? What's the best power broom to look at to put on the Polaris XP 1000? So on and so forth. And, you know, if there's a glitch anywhere in that thought process, I'm not ordering anything until we figure out those glitches.
And all of those costs are coming out of existing budget resources.
Correct,
And existing
correct.
Jen, you good with all that?
Yeah.
Anything else? All right. Student representative, again, I've got to get.
Kind of miss them. Do they?
I've got to get some kids that aren't involved. But Braden, he probably appreciate that. Actually, Carly is basketball, but Braden is tending to an ill grandmother. So he wanted to give his apologies to the council and also to note from a school's perspective, the biggest thing that he wanted to announce was that Brandon Wright won the TEC championship for wrestling this past Saturday. And so that was quite a notable accomplishment, and so you want to make sure that was bragged about on behalf of the school, so.
Good work,
Congrats to them. Yes?
I'm wondering if for the public, we can explain why Steve is sitting.
Oh! Well, Steve's been our assistant city manager on purpose. He's still our fire chief, so he's still wearing two hats. So he's a busy guy. In fact, I was in, gosh, where the heck was I sitting? I think I was sitting somewhere in Muncie in my vehicle and on a three-way call with Bill Corbin and Steve. And then in the background, you could hear the scanner going off. Where's the call? And it's like, okay, I told Bill, started laughing. I said, yeah, Bill, welcome to Steve's other job. So, but he was groomed. We tried to make the best use of our resources, and so that's why it was much more efficient and economical for us to have Steve serve in a city management perspective as an assistant to glean from Monty the ins and outs of the role. But that is a very poor way of putting that, why he was put in that role, because that assumes it was done out of convenience, where in reality it's been a huge blessing to this community. Because if you talk to some of these business owners, especially downtown and in the community and surrounding, Steve's been a godsend to them. He's Johnny on the spot. Anytime they need something, he's there immediately. He responds immediately. I think it's in his DNA, because that's when the bell rings, he's there. You know, i.e. fire, life of a firefighter. But he's been just tremendous. And case in point, he was talking to a prospective company coming in. I hooked him up with, based on a conversation I had first thing this morning. And the gentleman's discontent was the fact that he'd reached out to some other folks in Ohio and did not have any feedback, did not have any resolution at all. And Steve's talking to him and visiting him on the same day he reached out to us. So because we've got to be tenacious, and that's what he's been in this role. So he's been perfect. And so Monty he's finishing out the 4 or 5 different things I've got him on my desk. The 4 or 5 things that he was working on, which includes the Blight Grant, South Main Water Loop. There's a couple other things on that list that he was.
The community crossings.
Community crossings.
And he's closing out the wastewater plant.
And the waste, yes, those 4 he wanted to put to bed before he's officially done. So he's working just Tuesdays and Thursdays in a part-time capacity. He's actually an hourly worker for us. We're paying him hourly based. So, and that's just the kind of guy he is. He's been a godsend for years to us as well. So that's why Steve is up here. He's our city manager full time now, but he's still our fire chief. So that's how we roll. So, but thank you for Tito for bringing that up, because shame on me for not announcing it more formally.
Can I just add one more thing?
Absolutely.
So, one of the things that we are doing as well, I will not be speaking and representing the fire department moving forward. Kobe, our emergency services director, will be managing those tasks moving forward. I'll still be signing papers and complying with state and federal regulations from that perspective, but we are going to push the emergency services director role into a new area and actually be speaking on the fire department's behalf moving forward. So I'm still working as a paramedic, I'm still working as a fire chief, but it's in a different role and capacity, and Kobe will be assuming the administrative task moving things forward.
Thank you.
Still getting things done without adding headcount, without adding all the other encompassing expenses. We have no old business, but new business. Jan, if you don't mind, I will turn resolution 2022-R-01 into your hands.
Okay, resolution 2022-R-01, it's the increase-decrease resolution that I do every year. It's at the end of the year when there's some of the line items in each fund, some are negative, and then some have money left in them. I can't move the money across the different departments, so I have to have council approval to do that. The bottom line of the fund itself, you're not adding anything to the budget at all. You're just moving numbers around. So I'm asking for approval to do that.
Any questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I do have a question.
Yes.
It looks like the overall budget allocations, I mean, and you explained this, in the different departments remain the same. The only changes are within, that I detected, within the departments or categories. So some line items within the department will increase and some decrease, and it equals out. I just wonder, I can't understand why we have to do this. I mean, if you were taking money from the fire department and giving it to the police, then I would think, it's necessary to do this. But if it's within the departments, I just don't see why we're doing this.
The state says so.
The state says so.
Yeah, if you'd like to take that up with State Board of Accounts.
Okay.
That's about all I can tell you. I would just as soon not do it either. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, I'd submit probably part of what the state has going on with that is that, okay, so we have a line item in there for utilities. So if you wanted to play with money and you just load up a line item in utilities, knowing that you put $100,000 in utilities, you're only going to spend $30,000. You just left yourself $70,000 to throw anywhere and everywhere without any real detection, and just call it utilities. So they want to know how much you
spent. Gives more clarity.
So you can say that you can budget it, but then you have to come up with what you actually spend. So
That's a good
has
point.
to illustrate that. I think
that's a great point.
it's a
The budget reconciliation.
it keeps us from playing fast and loose with the numbers.
Right.
If we can move money, but we have to show that
it's
we have
passed.
money
Yeah.
and justify
Absolutely.
where it went.
Well put. And if that's not the reason, it should be.
That's just logic.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Because it does just that.
And listening to the auditors a few handful of times too, that we've done. So
So if no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move we accept resolution 2022-R-01, increase-decrease resolution. By title only.
We have a first, do we have a second?
I second.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Leahy.
Yes.
Nathan Conklin.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Peter Frias.
Yes.
Good. Now, ordinance 2022-01, which is the ordinance to increase number of Board of Works members. This one takes some preface on my part. The Board of Works, we've traditionally had 3 members. And I have not served for a couple different reasons on the Board of Works. Generally, mayors are welcome to serve on the Board of Works. In fact, it's often expected. With my job, my other job, my day job, I'm not able to be in the area generally. Usually I'm at least an hour, if not 2 hours or more away at 1 o'clock on a Monday afternoon.
And can I clarify something?
Absolutely.
That one of the things that there's been questions about, why do we have Board of Works meetings during the day because of accessibility? And one of the things that can be clarified is that our department heads have to be at those meetings.
Yes.
And we have to pay them
Yes.
at those meetings, so we would have an overtime bill. So
Thank
we're
you.
spending extra taxpayer money
Yep.
just for that
Yeah.
meeting to happen. And
So it's a cost saving by having it during the day, and that's a
Right.
great point. I appreciate you bringing that
So
up.
while it's not the do all end all, it is, and plus making them come in the evening just for something that, sometimes.
So for clarification, it's 3 member.
It can be 3 to 5. It can't be just 4.
Yeah.
It has to be at least 3, no more than 5. And I value, the other thing about it from my perspectives is I value other perspectives. I value increased perspectives. If people hear my motor enough, they know where I'm at. And I'm not dissing any other board, because most Board of Works, state of Indiana, and Board of Works, by the way, is a state statute. This isn't something, Union City, why do they need a Board of Works? Because we have to. Because if we want dollar number one from the state of Indiana, we have to have a Board of Works. Keep in mind, and people say, well, why can't we vote for the Board of Works? Well, because again, that's state statute. Think of it as a microcosm of a federal level entity, because like the president has his cabinet, but he still can't spend willy-nilly. He has, there's the balance, the 3 layers of legislation. I mean, you've got your Senate and House, then you've got presidential, executive level, and then you've got judicial. So you've got the balance of powers. We've got that at a smaller level in the city. So you've got the mayor, you've got the council, you've got the Board of Works, but the council is the ultimate governing body for money spent, which you vote for. So there is a say in terms of, obviously from the voters, and a very important say. But the Board of Works, if you will, is quote unquote like a cabinet, if you will. And we're blessed by a gentleman to my right who's served very graciously since I've taken office on the Board of Works. And we also have Tim, who's also served very graciously on Board of Works. I say graciously because people forget Tim has a job too, and Tim has to motor over, drop what he's doing, come over for the meeting. But he's been a godsend because he's got a wealth of knowledge from an operational standpoint, and he helps the guys immensely. If you ask Rob Myers or Brad Mink, they're thankful for Tim, and they would probably walk off the job if Tim walked off his job.
So I go that.
Well, they've expressed thanks to me a number of times. So, and then we have Delia Basinger, who's also on our Board of Works now, love that new perspective, and we were very blessed to have Dr. Pyle serve for a number of years. But again, those are 3 members that we're very blessed to have, but if I don't serve, I have to have somebody in my stead serve. That has to be a city manager is that it?
Yeah, it's administrative, so,
Yeah.
and it specifically says city manager.
Yeah, so it has to be a city manager. So that's Steve. I.e., now we have 4, so we can't have 4. We have to have 5. So we have to add 1 more member to have the full 5 board. So that's why we are where we are currently in terms of taking it from 3 to 5. But the other thing to think of though too, there's 2 things. Number one is when you only have 3, if somebody's out, i.e. pandemic, which we've had a person out a number of times at Board of Works meeting, 2 people meeting is kind of awkward for a board. And you don't get much perspective, which brings me, well, hold on a second. That brings me to my other point is, I love the idea of having 5 perspectives on our Board of Works, because I want the community represented. And we've talked about that. I want a blend, a mix of individuals. And we have wisdom and experience on the board. We have female representation on the board. We have cultural representation on the board. I want to have youthful representation on the board. So we've got to have that mix so we've got the voices that are heard for the community, which I value. Because I sure as heck don't have all the answers. No one does. But Tim, I apologize.
Well, we had a circumstance last year where we had a board member absent, and we had an action we needed to take that one of the board members had a conflict of interest on.
Yeah.
So we couldn't take action.
Yes, great
Because
point.
the one of the two board members over there,
Had to
so
abstain.
the action had to wait.
Yeah.
And it wasn't life or death, it wasn't critical that it be done, but it could be.
Yeah,
And-
right. It would put us at a standstill.
So it puts you at a standstill. So,
Right.
yeah, absolutely, the additional board members are, I think, very welcome,
So, well, I appreciate that.
at least from my standards.
You
My
will find that
perspective.
Tim and I both, and I'm sure when Susan was on, welcome the idea of having a 5-member board.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Good deal. I appreciate that.
I have a question. Yeah, I looked over the ordinances for this, and it said that the Constitution, the Board of Works consists of the mayor and 2 voters chosen by the mayor. Was there an amendment somewhere that happened that we got 3? I know you're not there. Does Tim sort of represent you
No.
at this point?
That's the problem, is Steve has to, we need to,
Yeah, now I have the right to appoint the city manager in my stead.
Right.
So that's why he needs to serve. But then we already had, well, Bob and Tim were already on the board. And then when Susan stepped down, I named Delia as her replacement without having knowledge that I had to have representation on the board, that I had to serve or city manager in my stead.
So you didn't realize that the mayor needed to be there, or that you needed representation, but we still had three people. I mean, was there, because let's see, the ordinance reads
Are you talking about our local ordinance?
our local ordinance.
That's what we're trying to
I think
change.
that's what we have to
Consists of the
change.
Yeah,
mayor
the state,
and
we're talking, I'm referencing state, you're referencing local.
I'm referencing local.
Yeah, state statute says you have to have 3 or 5 and that the mayor has to be represented.
Totally understand. But our local ordinance says that it's the mayor and 2.
Right, that's what we're
That's
changing.
that's what we're amending.
Right, but what I'm saying is, for as long as I've been on council, there have been 3 people
Right,
on, one of which is a city councilman.
yeah.
That was sort of
It
just,
should have been the mayor.
oh,
And at this point, the mayor has a choice at this point, either remove one board member and appoint the city manager as a board member, or increase to 5.
Right.
And I don't think there's anybody I don't think there's anybody that have the belief that was that removing someone was, if I believe that was the right thing to do, I'd step down.
Yeah, well, and
I would offer to step down.
I appreciate that, but
But I think we all very much in agreement that increasing the board to that size is the right thing to do. So so hence we're amending our ordinance within the state statute,
right, right.
is what we're doing.
okay. So it's a matter of having, assuring a quorum, having a diversity of opinions and decision-making. And if anybody has a conflict of interest, I mean, you still want to have a quorum able to take. So that sounds like a good administrative explanation for me.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure there's ability, voices to be heard, so.
I move that we approve ordinance 2021-ordinance to increase number of Board of Works members from 3 to 5 on the first reading.
Do we have a first? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Leahy,
Yes.
Nathan Conklin.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Peter Frias.
Yes.
Since that was unanimous.
Do we need to?
I'll move we suspend the rules.
We have a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can I ask who did the motion?
Tim and Bob.
Me and Bob.
Tim first. The rules have been suspended. I would hereby entertain a motion for approval on second reading.
I'll move we approve ordinance 2020 22-01, ordinance to increase the number of Board of Works members from 3 to 5 on the second reading by title only.
We have a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Brandon, second. Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore.
Yes.
Bob Leahy.
Yes.
Nathan Conklin.
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Peter Frias.
No.
Okay. Now we have ordinance 2022-02, which is the purchasing on the first reading. Let's see. Oh, okay. I'm gonna, Jan, or see if you want to cover this, or you want me to go ahead and read it?
It's, this is increasing the, what's that one? The amount that a department head can approve for a purchase from $1,000 to $5,000. And if you want to explain why?
Yeah, basically the cost of product, the cost of the things that we're doing is going up year after year after year. The council has a purchase order process that we go through. It's an administrative process. By increasing this and upping this limit, it's going to reduce some of that administrative task. We will still be doing some purchase orders because some manufacturers and some suppliers require a purchase order that accompany the order, but it will reduce several of them, probably cutting that work by half for doing that. I believe there's a time and place for this at $1,000, but I don't think our personnel and our processes that we've got implemented now to place these orders require the $1,000 limit. I think it'll just become more effective and efficient for our department heads to get their equipment and their supplies ordered and get maintenance work done.
And to give background, this was done some time ago and for good reason, several years ago with $1,000, and you had to have a PO to go beyond that because the purchasing was not in control. We had different department heads at one point in time, and so it was the absolute positively right thing to do. But because the beauty of that though is what you have is you have new and stable, steady department heads that is so ingrained in them in terms of meeting their budgets, which they do routinely, and you guys continually have oversight on that. It makes for a much more efficient process instead of processing POs, as Steve said, for increasing number of POs because of increasing cost of different items. It made sense to streamline this and give the governing responsibilities to their department heads to manage their departments as they were entrusted to do so. So that was hence get a little bit of the background on this.
So this is something we can agree to, and then
Change again if you need to.
That's what I was
Yes,
gonna say.
exactly. That's why
if it
we
got
had that
out of
exact
control,
discussion.
it could be
Yes,
readdressed.
we would, yeah, it's, I mean, this is a really bad analogy, but it's almost like entrusting your kids with a curfew at, one more hour, we're gonna let you out to 11 now. But if they start coming up at 11:30, guess what? Now it's 10 o'clock.
It's 9.
Or it's 9, yeah. Or it's not going out at all,
And just for clarification, I've been the fire chief for 8 years. This is my 8th year. When I started as fire chief, it was $500. Everything over 500 had to have a PO. Then at some point in time, over my tenure as fire chief, it became $1,000.
That was last year.
And
I thought it was recent, yeah.
the issue is that our costs are just skyrocketing. I mean, every single thing we're doing is costing at least twice as much in a lot of cases. And again, it's your guys' choice, but this is, you guys have appointed, or Chad has appointed these department heads to manage their budgets and to make the decisions on what their needs are, and we're almost handcuffing them in certain cases.
I'll speak from a perspective of being Board of Works. I see all the purchase orders are all emailed to me, forwarded to me, so I see those every time. And the volume of purchase orders has gone up, and a lot of the purchase orders are things like chemicals for water, chemicals for wastewater, lots of purchases for, you know, $1,500, $1,200 that are regular, routine
Have to
purchases
have.
that are just a part of the everyday
Right.
purchases by those departments, so they're not, hey, let's, you know.
Like shiny new tool.
Shiny new tool, yeah, we're not seeing that. And also the experience that when those things, when I get a lot of visits from Brad about, hey, what do you think about this? Because he'll bounce it off of me. He talks to Monty, he talks to Steve. Rob's the same way. They tend to, when they have significant things that they want to purchase, they're consulting at the very least with the city manager. So that environment has, like I say, has changed a lot. And as Nathan points out, that's flexible, that if that situation were to change in the future, we can, we or whatever council can alter this at any time.
Absolutely.
But
I've got a question.
Yes.
Do we have to go all the way to 5,000? Because as Tito pointed out, last year we just changed it from 500 to 1,000. I'll be honest, if my wife went on a spending spree and spent $5,000 over the weekend, I would be a little blindsided. I wouldn't feel as bad at 2,500. I feel like that's a large jump.
That's a good question for Jim and Steve. What are your thoughts?
It's your choice.
Would it
doesn't
reduce
affect-
the number of POs from 1,000 to 2,500?
I think, I mean, it's gonna, I'm rolling through that in my head I couldn't quote off numbers of them other than there are a lot of purchase orders that have been issued that are well under $2,500 that's on a routine.
Well, and then now we also have Steve, who, as soon as you call him, he can come sign and approve for that.
Yeah.
Well, it's, the process is a little bit more
Yeah.
involved in that, but it's not complicated. It just requires you to basically sit down, look at the appropriation report, assign the line item, and basically do the data entry in the computer to print out the PO. But yes, $2,500 is definitely an improvement and will reduce a lot of the work,
It would
yes.
still help streamline.
I would say that
And I believe in our conversation, that was discussed, go to 5 or go to 25, but increase it over 1,000 because almost everything we're ordering is $1,000.
yeah.
Jim, do you have any idea what other communities typically do the size of Union City?
No, I don't know what, I mean, I can find out. The thing that I would maybe suggest is that I can take a look at the POs and see, just see what the average is and see if.
Well, my perspective is if we took a look at a little history to see, and maybe check with department heads what, if they have any of these regular reoccurring purchases that exceed that, then we might look at it. But if that's sufficient, then I don't see a problem.
Here's one from I keep them all stored on my phone. Here's one from, because I get copied on them too. I Trust subscription, that's for IT, that's $1,250, so that would be covered by a $2,500 one, obviously. This one is for Gilman, scissor lift rental for painting upper and lower garage interior, that's for $1,095, so that would be covered by the $2,500. Here's one for K.I.S.S Consulting for administration for the Blight Grant memorandum of understanding data. That's something we have to have for the Blight Grant. That's $3,620. That would not obviously be covered. Here's one for the Governor Gray Mansion feasibility study. That's $1,200, so that would have been covered by $2,500, and that's also covered, by the way, by the grant we got from the Indiana State Preservation. Brim, what's this for? Brim is for install new fascia, gutter, soffit, and downspouts on non-potable building. That's out of our wastewater. That's $3,000. So that would not be covered. So you see, it's about 60% would be covered by the $2,500. So you probably, if you follow that route, more times than not have an impact.
And ones like that, larger K.I.S.S Consulting,
That's not
PO,
department head.
That's
not-
true.
It's not.
Exactly.
That's a good
It's
point.
gonna be the city manager.
That's gonna be
handling that
regarded.
anyway, so that's not too big a deal.
That's a good point. That's a great point. Here's one for Neptune meter software from the water department, $3,857.
So there's one there that.
Here's Blue River Technologies, that's for geobags, that's $2,300, so that would be covered.
See, and, yeah.
That's the kind of ones that I'm-
That's the kind of thing that's gonna be purchased online.
That's the kind of thing that I
And they
want.
have to have
Yeah.
it, so why would make them get a purchase order?
Yeah.
I have to order those.
Here's one for $1,903, again.
So let's just be safe and step this up incrementally. Let's just go $2,500 tonight.
And then see how.
There's another BBC pump for,
And like I said, when Monty and I and Chad discussed this initially, we talked $2,500 or $5,000, and there really in that meeting wasn't a right or wrong answer, and it either way, we're reducing administrative repetitive task is what we're reducing.
right, and that's what we're trying to do. I mean, here's another one, here's Cooley, jet and televised lines at wastewater treatment plant, $2,152, so that would be covered. First one would not be, it was for clean and televised lines at Columbia and West Pearl Street, that's $4,400, so.
Well, and most of these things are gonna be covered in their budget, correct?
They're all covered.
They're all covered.
All the budget,
Yeah.
all these have come from the budget.
It's just to help them stay in line with their budget, not let them go hog wild, you know?
Yeah.
But again, I need to state publicly, to Rob Myers, to Brad Mink's credit, to Kobe Wells, to Steve Shoemaker's credit, they do that anyway.
Yeah.
They manage their budgets extremely well, so.
You know, normally, yeah, I mean, these are responsible individuals, but, you know, things change and whatever, and things can happen. What is our mechanism for tracking the expenditure rate? Like, when you raise the authority at that level, I mean, you can get much larger, transactions happening. If you get several of them, then you could run into a cost overrun.
We
quickly. So-
do that monthly through the appropriation report. She tells us what our percentages are and what the balance percentage is remaining. And it's 8% is
Yeah,
what we
we try to
target every month. We plan on spending not more than that 8% of our budget every month, so we stay on track. So that's something that's literally monitored by Jan,
Meticulous.
and I'm assuming by Monty, now me, it'll be monitored on a regular basis. Now, there's things that we incur that aren't expected. If I got a truck go down and I have to spend $10,000 to put it back in service, that's going to increase that expenditure in any given month. But for the most part, we track that literally monthly. I mean, that we're staring at that report.
And I
all the
think
time.
we see those too.
Right, correct.
Yeah, it's in right here.
Okay.
And it's just like when I had to replace the cement at the firehouse, that threw my budget numbers completely out of whack. But there was a specific reason why that happened, and we had no option but to replace that cement.
And then you lower your expenses.
Then I try my best to manage and reduce everything I spend throughout the rest of the calendar year.
Okay.
Question.
Okay.
Steve, if you had something as fire chief you needed signed off on, would Kobe now have to sign off on that?
Say that again, so
As
I
fire
answered
chief-
correctly.
Kobe will be speaking on behalf of the fire department emergency services for approving budgetary items. Will that be something that he'll have to take care of as well?
Administratively, I would be involved in the conversation. Kobe would be the one speaking for the operation and be submitting it for Board of Works approval and/or council approval if that, something like that were to happen, yes. And then I would be issuing the PO, or Jan would be issuing the PO for that purchase.
Okay.
I like the 2,500.
I'm good with it.
Well, do I hereby entertain a motion for
So
that?
we're doing 25, are we doing,
Jen, do we need to rephrase? What do we need to do here? 2,500, I think
There's a
sounds
draft
like.
ordinance.
2,500?
With an amendment.
Yeah.
You could state the ordinance and with the amendment of 5,000 to 2,500, not to exceed 2,500.
I move that we approve ordinance 2022-02 by title only with the amendment of changing the $5,000 mark to 2,500.
Do we have a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote with said amendment.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Leahy.
Yes.
Nathan Conklin,
Yes.
Tim Heiss.
Yes.
Peter Freas.
Yes.
All right. Now, based on the last meeting, we had the preliminary engineering report for South Main Waterloo. You should have in your packets the proposal from K.I.S.S Consulting. You asked if, why doesn't Wessler provide us just an updated version? Well, we had to have an updated version, we do know that for sure, but Wessler, we did contact them, they never got back with us. So, and unfortunately
That's crazy.
yeah, so it is what it is. So, but we reached out for another bid yet and contacted K.I.S.S Consulting, who we've done a lot of work with, and they do a great job. Some might even ask, why didn't you go K.I.S.S in the first place? Well, because a lot of times people question, why do you keep going back to the same folks all the time? Well, it's tough to trust them, but a lot of folks out there, they want to see, other people get opportunities. So that's what we do. Well, when we do that, then we come back to where we used to use in the first place. Because they gave us a quote that was $24,000, and then the quote we're submitting to you from K.I.S.S Consulting is in your packet, as you see, for, trying to think, we're,
10,500.
there you go, thank you. So again, he's got a long track record with us, does extremely well, do good work. And this is something, again, that we have to, well, if we want development out there, we have to do something here. We can't just sit on it unless you're, well, that sounds like an asinine statement, unless you're okay with not having development, I don't mean that to sound flippant, I'm just saying.
I have a concern.
Absolutely.
I think it's like a draft contract that we saw in here. It's very much in their favor and not in ours. And I'll give you a few examples. Paragraph 2.01A says that if we're late in paying, our costs will be due to the engineer will be raised by 1% per month of delay. Okay, sure, we're good about paying,
Right.
but we should also give discounts if the engineer is late in his performance. If it's going his way, what if he's delaying? I think that's one. I'll just state the other one that I thought was more egregious. Paragraph 3.01A1B2 says the engineer can be delayed for 90 days for unforeseen reasons. He can delay his work for 90 days, and then he gives a 7-day notice to terminate the agreement. That means he can string us on for 3 months.
No,
And then say, "Oops, sorry, can't do it."
I agree. It sounds a little bit, I don't know, combative to what we're trying to achieve, I know. But however, keep the big picture in mind. If we had that kind of response from an engineering company, we wouldn't go back to them. That's common language in engineering contracts. You would see that very similar language in just about any engineering contract you sign with Wessler, RQAW, K.I.S.S, MOTA, so you name it, you go on and on. That's very common language because they have to make sure their hind ends are covered because they don't want language in there saying, oh, if you don't have it done 30 days, we're not paying you. Because he has no idea what's going to happen, and he can't predict the future either. We do the same thing with our suppliers. Tim, do you penalize your suppliers if they're late in getting wood to you? Are you able to do that?
It'd be nice.
You're at their mercy, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're at their mercy.
No, I don't, and like I said, you don't pay, you're not paying ahead either, and we we don't really pay
Until services are rendered.
until services are rendered.
Exactly.
But one of the things that that they have in contingency with this is that sometimes they're at the mercy of other government agencies that are, just what we've been through the past 2 years has been horrendous on getting things done because some government agencies have been shut down or nearly shut down and limping along, barely performing. So if you're dependent on some agency to get you information, you're out of luck.
How long was,
We have ran.
what was the wait for the bridge and the engineering
Oh my
on that?
gosh, yeah.
through
Oh, good Lord.
I mean, that was easily 90
Yeah,
days.
that was the Department of Resources, and that still irks Larry Anspaugh that we don't talk to him about that because it cost Community Christmas an extra several $1,000s to
Yeah.
build that bridge
Yeah.
because DNR was late in their approval, which made it late for us to get the supplies, and by the time we got the supplies, the prices
Prices went-
skyrocketed.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, but that's a great point, Tim, because what it does is it hedges him against governing agencies that he has to apply for permitting through or get different approvals for what he's supplying to us, because he has to have okays on like engineering report, he's got to have a state okay that he submits to us, so we know it's good. This has been validated. We're not just doing this because Joe Blow down the street said, yeah, go for it. It's actually been verified and validated. But if he's got to wait in that process, and we've got some type of clause we make him adhere to that if you don't have it done in 30 days, you're not getting paid, that hangs him out to dry.
Now, if we were in a different process, such as the build process, and we have a contract with a contractor that they're going to build this water loop, for example, that we're talking about, and this is the time period set, and the completion date is 12/1, and you can have a penalty clause in there where after 12/1 they have to pay a certain amount back. Of course, a lot of these highway projects, they'll have a clause in where it has to be done by a certain date, but then they also get paid bonuses based on being done sooner.
Yeah.
Because the sooner you get the highway open, the better off the state is. So, just in those kinds of circumstances, you will have those types of things, but engineering, you don't get that.
Right.
You're not going to have that circumstance, but
No. I just wish that, I just think we can negotiate a little more hard-nosedly, right? So that we can get this is a study, right? This is a study based on which then we will ask for a building of the water pipe.
We have to have this, the water, it's for the South Main Water Loop, for the property out there south of what's Eco and just northeast, I guess, if you will, or southeast of the Workhorse plant. And keep in mind that he's also confident, because he's also a grant writer for us, he's confident in the infrastructure bill, that's $712 million infrastructure bill, that is what we can tap into to have this work done. But we can't have the first thing done without the study, because that's the first thing we're going to be asking for.
We can't even
Show me
apply
your
for the
study.
grant until we have the paper.
Yeah, show me your study, show me verification or validation as to why you need this done and how it's going to be done. I hear too, that's business. It's not perfect world.
one thing I keep in mind that makes me comfortable at this point is that Keyser Consulting is a known quantity. We've had
Right.
we've had
Number of
grants that we've worked with,
Number
and
of
so
projects.
we know the track record
Yep.
in the fact that we know what their performance is,
Yep.
and it's consistent.
He wants to do well by us, because I mean, like Oak Street, for example, that was the part of Community Crossings. That's what the grant he helped us secure. He's the one that wrote that grant. That's Keyser Consulting. The grants for
I see.
yeah, he's done.
He's not in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been workforce for.
He's done a lot of work with Vision Corner too.
Yes,
Yeah.
he secured the grant for the purchase building. He secured the grant. He's the one who
He's
secured.
spoken with us here.
Yeah.
What's that?
He's spoken with us.
Yes, yeah. He's secured a buku number of grant funding for us. In fact, he helped us hit the ground running with the rail tower, even because he's got connections
Yep.
with the end of preservation and Indian landmarks, I should say.
Yeah.
Indian landmarks. He got us money from Indian landmarks for both that and the Gray Mansion. I'm trying to think, what are the other grants he's gotten us? I mean, it's long.
Countless.
Yeah, so I mean, he wants to do what lies, because he wants our continued business.
Daycare center possibly?
Was he on the
Yes.
daycare?
Daycare.
Yeah, well, that was Kennet Consulting that ultimately got that one from Okra. That was Okra.
Yeah. That's right.
But yeah, Monty, if Monty was here, he could list off probably off
Yeah.
the top of his head, at least 10 grants he's helped us
We did the
achieve.
blight grant.
Yes, he helped us get the blight grant, $500,000. Yeah, so I mean, these are the things I talked about, that's just within the last year. So he wants our business. Anybody who runs a business, well, anybody knows it, but anybody who runs a business too knows that you've got to have things in there that hedge yourself, protect yourself in the wildest of scenarios. But at the same time, if you know anything about running a business, you want to do the very best for your customer because you want them back. Because he'd be foolish to do anything to alienate that, because let's face it, he's not cheap either. I mean, he's a lot cheaper than what we've had quoted to us. But engineering in general is not cheap.
Yeah.
You ask any community, it's expensive.
But I think this, let's say this was a good exercise to do this, because it's definitely
Yeah, definitely.
a much
Hopefully,
better number.
you see it. Yeah, hopefully that number's a lot more palatable.
Yes.
Who was that, Wessler?
Yes, Wessler was the original.
Can we put a black mark on there?
Well, they didn't even call us back.
Yeah, that's why, they didn't even call us back.
Pay him all this time, or?
I'm kind of sure that that's why Monty chose RQAW, because RQAW is wanting our business really, really bad. They're a very large, very capable firm. Monty gave RQAW the initial proposal request because Wessler has just basically not been very responsive over the last several years. So
We did run into some challenges with the wastewater treatment plant, so, yeah, so. Anyway,
It was downhill from there.
We need a motion,
Yeah.
correct.
I move that we approve the short form of agreement between owner and engineer for professional services, K.I.S.S Consulting Group.
We have a first, and we have a second.
I'll second.
Jan, if you would, roll call vote.
Brandon Elmore,
Yes.
Bob Leahy,
Yes.
Nathan Kaufman,
Yes.
Tim Heiss,
Yes.
Peter Frias.
Yes.
Now, we have to stricken the last one from the agenda, don't we? Resolution.
Right, we can't do that.
Yeah, we can't do the last resolution because we do not have the, and just for the audience notification, it's Resolution 2022-R-02, which is a resolution approving the residential housing plan for Plum Street, but we do not have the zoning signed documentation from zoning, area planning, correct?
It doesn't have to go to the sign group, does it?
We're not planning on putting a big sign.
We were gonna do a big digital sign up for them. I'm teasing,
Maybe if it's temporary.
So yeah, so we cannot address that one. So it moves us on to visitors.
I do have a question
Yes.
before we go. While we were talking about the K.I.S.S thing.
Yeah, it's Keyser for the
Keyser, I'm sorry,
No, you're good.
my fault. You mentioned that we're thinking that the money from the infrastructure bill could be used for this line of water. Are we
Infrastructure,
also?
federal government.
I know,
Okay.
yeah. So, are we at all thinking about, I mean, one of the things that was talked about for this bill to fund was the replacement of any lead piping, old lead piping, like we want to completely refurbish the infrastructure. That was the main idea. Are we thinking of those lines? I see we're preparing for this. Are we preparing for that?
That, yes. Yes, the answer, short answer, yes. So, we, obviously, it's to be seen what kind of, how the funding will be delineated exactly, what the ramifications are, how much is available per entity, but yes. So, visitors, comments, questions, anybody wishing to?
I have a
Bill?
question.
Bob, yes.
My wife, who donated that rock sign, wants to know why it isn't out in front of the President Rock House. She wants the community to know that that's a rock house.
That's a great point.
primarily because we just haven't put it in the yard yet.
Yeah, you know what?
I told her,
Ground was frozen.
Sit down and put it up there.
That's a
No,
great point, though.
it'll
Ground was
be
We
out.
wanted to look good first.
Well, now,
It looks much
Yes and
better.
no. Yeah.
yes and no.
Yeah.
You want to see where you start and where you end up.
Ah,
Because the
okay.
painting is coming in the spring, so that's when the big change happens, so it'd be good for them to do ahead of time. I will get with Kobe on that. That's a
I
good-
just bring that up because I forget
Absolutely.
that when I get home if I don't.
You value sleeping in the same room, don't you? All right, no, great question. The day of the next city council meeting will be Monday, February 14th. That's a special day, so my apologies to you guys in advance that we've got a council meeting that evening, 6 p.m. Board of Works, same day at 1 p.m. I would hereby entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a first, and we have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, Tito, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.